I have the pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Professor Ahmed Adel from Cairo University, Digital Therapeutics in Hypertension.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, distinguished professors and audience. I would like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me today to give this lecture about digital therapeutics in hypertension. I believe this is an important and interesting topic that deserves to be mentioned thoroughly. The first thing that comes to our mind when we talk about digital therapeutics, of course, we're going to talk about wearable devices that measure blood pressure or the smart apps that are present in the app stores and the Google Play that record blood pressure for us and give us some charts. But actually, this is not the thing. It's much more complex than this, because we are in an era of transformation between electronic devices and artificial intelligence. So there are lots of things to say about this, and there are many expressions that we need to learn. In terms of digital health. The first thing is the information communication technology. This is the booming technology, the so-called ICT. This is the basis of this digital therapeutics that would serve to diagnose and treat many of the medical problems, the so-called digital medicine. There's also a term that's called software as a medical device. It means, it refers to the software that are used for medical purposes in the personal gadgets that we have, the smartphones and the tablets and etc. And does not mean the software that is sold with the machines that we have in our hospitals. And all of this should serve the digital therapeutics, because digital therapeutics refer to evidence-based approaches and algorithms that use the softwares that we mentioned and the platform of the ICT in order to diagnose and treat medical conditions. So basically, the design of this system should include an application that's in the Apple Watch or smartwatches or smartphones. And this application should interact with the patient in two directions. The patient gives the data about the blood pressure. It does not give the data, but the app reads the blood pressure of the patient, among other things. And the app should give the patient information about how to adopt lifestyle modification for lowering the blood pressure and guidance in that field, in addition to personalized programs for weight loss and lifestyle modification. And then all of this should be uploaded through the ICT to the so-called Internet of Medical Things. This is another expression that we should need to learn. And then there's the doctor app interaction. The doctor receives the information that's uploaded to the server online, and then finally there's the doctor-patient relationship or doctor-patient interaction in order to follow up the blood pressure and control it adequately. So what are the proposed mechanisms for lowering blood pressure by using this system? The first mechanism is adopting a lifestyle modification approach. And these apps and smartwatches and smartphones encourage patients to lose weight and to exercise and to reduce the salt in their diet and to adopt healthy lifestyle and healthy diets and also reduce alcohol consumption, relieve stress, and improve the quality of sleep. All of these things, we know that they should be adopted in order to improve the blood pressure control of patients. And these apps offer this for the patients. The second thing is self-monitoring of blood pressure. We all know that out-of-office blood pressure readings are preferred in all of the major hypertension guidelines, and they are predictors of cardiovascular outcome. But the thing is, It also offers blood pressure variability, and this is an important risk factor for cardiovascular outcomes, and we'll come to that in a minute. But the thing is, we need to measure the blood pressure adequately and accurately in order to make use of this. And to show you the magnitude of this problem, as Dr. Ghada just mentioned recently, this is a study in the JAMA network in 2022 showing that only 8.8% of the devices worldwide have adequate validation, and the rest are not validated by regulatory authorities. And this is a problem. So we need devices that are handheld or in the watches or the smartphones that are validated and certified by regulatory authorities in order to get good measurements of blood pressure that we can use for further analysis. And this meta-analysis showed that the applications that are provided nowadays to self-monitor the blood pressure have reduced blood pressure significantly, especially in patients who had inadequate blood pressure control. And now we come to the issue of blood pressure variability. We know it's an important risk factor for cardiovascular events. And so it's important, and I think it's logic to have a good monitor of the blood pressure, continuous monitor of the blood pressure, day to day, even diurnal, even beat by beat measurements of blood pressure. This would provide us with short-term data about the patient, and also on the long-term status, visit to visit, seasonal, and even yearly follow-up of the blood pressure. All these things are important to analyze the patient and his risk for future cardiovascular events. And there is this system that was invented in Japan. It's called IMS. It stands for ICT-based multi-sensor blood pressure monitoring. Basically, it doesn't only measure the blood pressure of the patient. It also measures, it has a thermometer, but not to measure the patient's temperature. It measures the atmospheric temperature around the patient in his household, for instance. And also it has a barometer to measure the atmospheric pressure, and has an actigraph that measures the physical activity of the person in 3 dimensions. And on all of this, in order to get an idea about the environmental situation that patient is in and the stresses that surround him, and correlate this with his blood pressure readings. And by this, we can detect surges in blood pressure and correlate this with the changes in the environment. And if the patient, for instance, or a person, he's not a patient yet, gets a heart attack, for instance, we can then get back and see what happened to his blood pressure and the environmental changes that happened to him. And in that concept, we can anticipate later on if he can get another attack of acute coronary syndrome. And this is what's called another new term, anticipation medicine, which refers to the medicine that should predict events from the current data. And so the system in Japan, the patient sits in his room, his blood pressure is measured continuously. He has the atmospheric pressure and temperature recorded, and the surges in the blood pressure should be transmitted to a cloud system using the ICT technology, and then it gives an alert to the patient if there's something wrong, or his doctor, and this could prevent events. The third mechanism that can lower the blood pressure using digital therapeutics is through medications. Most of the apps now can encourage adherence to medications and feedback between the patient and the app that can monitor the medications and prevent forgetting to take them. And also, it should reduce the therapeutic inertia. Therapeutic inertia means the refusal or failure of the healthcare profession provider to escalate the drug dosage or introduce new drugs if the target blood pressure was not achieved. So this should be reduced using the applications. So, but all this are in theory. What about the current evidence of mobile health applications interventions nowadays? The evidence is still shorted, and in the past 3 years, it has been growing a little bit better. We have 3 big RCTs. 2 of them were positive. They randomized patients, around 400 patients, into using the apps that promote lifestyle modification, among other things, and personalized programs for every patient on his own, according to his body weight, according to his gender, according to his blood pressure and his age, among other things. versus the standard of care. And both studies showed that there has been a reduction in the blood pressure, ambulatory blood pressure and 24-hour blood pressure of about 4 millimeters of mercury on average. The third study was unfortunately a negative study, but it also promoted self-confidence for the patient that he could control his blood pressure. But there was no difference between those who use the app and those who use the standard of care. So it's a little bit early in order to have a conclusion about this. And there are limitations for most of the studies that have been done so far. Most of them are moderate quality. They're not an excellent studies. They lack blinding, of course. They lack consistency in the methods of measuring blood pressure and the apps that are used. And so it is difficult to draw conclusions from them. And there are also limitations in general to this digital therapeutic issue. The access of technology, of course, because it's not a widespread thing. The integration with health systems and the electronic medical records is not full. There's also technological literacy. Most of the patients do not know how to use smartphones or smart watches and to follow up the blood pressure with these applications and to interact with these applications. The devices need to be developed better and to be validated and certified by regulatory authorities. There are no standards or specs that are put for digital therapeutics, not like other medical devices that we use in hospital, for instance. And of course, there's the issue of data security and privacy. So my take-home messages is that this is a new era, but I think the digital therapeutics is here to stay. And we are in the first kilometer of the marathon. There are already digital solutions that have already impacted healthcare delivery, especially with the COVID pandemic. We have a lot of data nowadays and inputs from patients, but we don't know how to deal with them. And this is the problem. So I think more work should be done to organize and deal with the data and to validate devices and algorithms and to monitor clinical outcomes and KPIs. Thank you for your attention.
شكرا دكتور أحمد for this presentation. يمكن السؤال واضح إنه السوفت وير is rather complicated. وبالتالي there will be a special types of patients to be used. المفروض إنه يبقى highly intelligent.
صحيح.
وبعدين which patient يعني أي عيان يستخدم، هل بتاع المايلد hypertension ولا المودريت ولا السيفير ولا الريزيستنت؟ يعني المفروض إن special types of patients will be using this devices. These devices دي حاجة. الحاجة الثانية، الحاجة الثالثة، هل في حاجة available in the Egyptian market which is approved anywhere يعني in the United States or in Europe أو كده ولا ما فيش لسه؟
لا الحقيقة لسه، هو كل الحاجات دي under experiment. ما فيش حاجة available for commercial use، لأن هو مش مجرد قياس للضغط بس، زي ما قلت لحضرتك هو personalized program بيتحط لكل واحد لوحده. يعني انا ما ادخل سني ووزني وطولي وحاجات تانية كتيره، هيقول لي المفروض اكل ايه واكل امتى والادويه اللي باخدها عامله ازاي ويتابع معايا. يعني في حاجات كتير قوي انتراكشنز قويه جدا ما بين الابلكيشن والبيشنت، وفي الاخر كل ده بيتحط على سيستم ويروح للدكتور. فاحنا لسه ما فيش السيستم ده، مش موجود كوميرشالي ومش انتجريتد مع الهوسبيتالز، وبالتالي برضو حتى الدكاتره even they will need some education about it عشان يعرفوا ازاي يتعاملوا مع السوفت ويرز دي. هي المفروض انها من ناحيه يعني very user friendly، مفيش مشكله خالص في الاستخدام، بس طبعا the patient needs to have some technological يعني literacy عشان يعرف يتعامل مع الحاجات دي. لكن هي هتبقى مشكله كبرى في development of the software itself، لكن هو نفسه it is user friendly، مفيش مشكله في استخدامه. موضوع انها يستخدم مثلا في الانكنترولد هايبرتنشن ولا في كل الهايبرتنشن، البروبوزد ثيوري ان لا يستخدم في كل الناس، لانه حتى لو في even في الايرلي ستيجز اوف هايبرتنشن this may delay التريتمنت. واحد لسه عنده بوردر لاين او مارجنال هايبرتنشن، فهو كده كده الريكومنديشن بتاعت الجايد لاينز ان هو يعمل لايف ستايل موديفيكيشن، فاحنا we will adopt this lifestyle modification using this system. So it should be applied for everyone، فللناس عندهم mild hypertension او عندهم uncontrolled hypertension. وكمان معظم الستاديز حتى الان الكبيره على الاقل طلعت ان هو بيقلل 4 ملم of mercury on average في الحاجات اللي هي السيمبل اللي طلعت لغايه دلوقتي which is a good thing I think لان حتى ال average blood pressure reduction of most of the hypertension drugs is about 10 millimeters of mercury. فاحنا ده نص يعني نص ال efficacy of treatment drugs اللي عندنا حتى الان يعني. ف I think it's promising بس طبعا محتاجه infrastructure ومحتاجه education للدكاتره وللعيانين عشان نستخدمه.
اتفضل يا دكتور.
خبرة أكثر منها now in this dilemma and the era of data and medical data اللي موجودة في الفيس وفي كل المواقع ويعني how يعني هو يمكن السكيل communications began to be very difficult with a patient asking you in details. في الاستشارة بيجي يقول لحضرتك النشرة بتاعت المرض ده كان زمان دلوقتي بيفتح النت فمي ask a wisdom or communication skills advice how to manage with such patients especially الناس بسيطة we must respect them. I don't know how sometimes يعني أنا شخصيا ببقى exhausted وأنجري وبصل لمرحلة بقول له معلش سيب الطب وخد اللي أنا كاتبه لك دلوقتي وكلمني وبعد كده ببقى زعلان من نفسي إن أنا بعمله كده.
والله
أنا بسأل سؤال حكمة أكتر مش عارف.
والله you are right. احنا all of us are exhausted. وانا كنت لسه هقول للدكتور احمد عادل يعني ان السوفت وير ده هيأذينا احنا.
هي هو الموضوع طبعا سلاح ذو
ده
حدين.
المشكله انه ما يروحش العياده اساسا.
أيوة. لا وكمان يعني احنا حاليا دلوقتي العيانين من سمارت واتشز يجوا يقولوا انا على طول الهارت ريت بتاعي مش عارف 110 و190 وحاجات كده فهو متابع حاجات ودي في حد ذاته بتعمل انكزايتي عشان كده الليترسي مهم والاديوكيشن مهم.
نعم
هو يتعلموا قلقه كده وتوتره كل ما يقيس يعني حتى لو قلت له اذا واحد جاي عيان يقول لي انا قسته الصبح وقسته بالليل وقسته ده يعمل له يعني يزود له يعمل له انكسايتي
لا وخصوصا لو العيان اوبسيسيف لو العيان اوبسيسيف وانكشس هيتعب حضرتك جدا.
ده لازم
هي يمكن النقطه دكتور احمد ان احنا بندخل very high technology ل under educated patients.
احنا هنستعملها بيه مع العيان اللي
هي دي
هيقدر
المشكله.
يستعمل التكنولوجيا.
فالمفروض انه
احمد كان بيساعدنا
بالظبط كده
نبقى اب تو ديت لايه اللي بره وازاي ممكن ننقله ونستفيد منه، مش بالضروره هنطبقه لكل العيان. it should be tailored. انا بشكركم جدا بس لو سمحتوا
عشان الوقت
ماشي
اوكي شكرا.
Thank you. Close the session.